Hey, what's up, everybody? It is episode 15 of the Business Unscripted podcast. And well, since we're unscripted, as we always say, it's just me today. So you just get to listen and hear my lovely voice today as Dwarn, as we were talking about in last week's episode. Dwarn had a beautiful baby girl this week with his wife. And obviously his wife did a lot of the work. But so he is on father duty today. So he is going to be off. But for now, it just gets me. And and it was one of those things where I was trying to kind of figure out, all right, what do I want to talk about? What might be interesting for you all? And as everybody knows, right, we are here kind of talking business. We're kind of going through our own sort of journeys and what we are going through in our business, right? As well as ways that we are helping people be better with our clients, with our, obviously our visuals here. And we just want to be here to help you kind of level up in your business. My personal goal is to have influence on at least 1,000 businesses by the end of 2028. Now, it's a lofty goal. I get it. If you know, and you've heard me talk before, I believe in setting ambitious goals. I believe in setting things that are going to make you think a little bit differently in your business. And for that, the SMART acronym, we're all possibly familiar with it, right? So, S stands for specific. So make sure it's, actually specific and, detailed out. The M stands for measurable. So not only is it specific, but can you measure it, right? And is it something that is, can be tracked with data and results? A is where I like to change it, right? A is where I like to teach being ambitious. Now, if you just look up SMART acronym, A stands for attainable, but I don't like attainable, right? Attainable means that it's you're going to continue doing what you're doing and you're going to be able to reach it, right? It's like an attaboy. Well, if you're in business, attaboys aren't going to make you profitable. Attaboys aren't going to make you scale. So what you need to do is you need to set ambitious, right, goals that are going to push you outside of your comfort zone, push you to do more in your business. So with that, what I want you to start thinking when you think of your goals and you start setting your goals is to start using ambitious goal setting in your business, right? So then you have the other areas, and right, the R stands for relevant. So it makes sure that it's relevant in terms of your goals, where you're heading into the future, right? So make sure that you want to set a goal, like let's say you want to grow and maybe you want to reach 100 clients. Well, then you don't want to set a goal that is going to be on the culture of your business, right? Unless it's also aligned with your future success. And then T is time related, right? So it's time, restricted. So you're setting some sort of time limit to your goal. You don't want your goals to just be open-ended forever. Otherwise, you'll never be able to measure and hold yourself accountable for that. So just to recap, S, specific, M, measurable, A, ambitious. Don't use attainable, be ambitious with it. R, relevant to your future, and T, make sure there's some sort of time restriction to your goal. So whether that's 6 months, 12 months, 2 years, as I stated, right, my 1,000 is by the end of 2028. So there's some sort of time measured goal with that. So going back to goals, make sure that you're setting things up in order to be different, right? To order to require you to think differently about what you're doing in your business, because that's where you're truly going to make that growth. That's truly where you're going to make that next step forward, not just continuing to do, the things that you're doing. You got to think outside the box. So that was kind of the first thing that came to mind was, thinking my goal, thinking of ways that I help teach people along that. But then the next thing is I was kind of like trying to figure out, okay, what do I want to talk about? Like, what do I think is relevant? And I'm working on a presentation that I'm about to be giving on change. And it's going to be 2 presentations, but this first one's coming up next week. And it's for a local college here. And the topic this one is on mindset. As a leader and as business owners, we are leaders, no matter how much we even if you're leading yourself, you're still a leader. And how important you have to pay attention to your mindset in order to, kind of lead and through change as a leader. And as everybody knows, and if you don't know, this book right here, right, Mindset by Carol Dweck, is probably one of the biggest impacts in my life in terms of how I change the way that I think. So in this book, Dr. Carol Dweck talks about the 2 different types of mindsets that you could have. And one is a fixed mindset, and another one is the growth mindset. And if you are living with a fixed mindset, then you're thinking things like, I'm stuck. I'm never going to be able to do better. This is the only thing that was meant for me. You're always thinking like in that woe is me, like never going to be able to find opportunities, right? You kind of feel like whatever your destiny for your life was set out kind of by the time you were born. Right, your abilities are truly set in stone. You're not able to kind of grow and evolve. When you struggle with like a test or results, or maybe you struggle with kind of growth in your business, you think to yourself, well, it's just because I'm not good enough, right? Maybe I'm not supposed to do this, right? So those are fixed mindset beliefs. Those are things that are deep seated in your mind when you're in the fixed mindset. Now, when you're in the growth mindset, this is where you start seeing the struggle, right? The obstacles as part of your learning process, as part of your growth. So when you fail, or maybe when you don't reach the objectives that you want, you see yourself being able to get better through more effort, through better strategy, through maybe other areas of support or education or growth. This is when you're in the growth mindset, right? You look at things, and instead of saying, I can't do that because I'm not good enough, or I can't do that because I don't know how, you start looking for the ways, right, to find the opportunity and lead with a growth mindset. And you can help other people around you also begin to get in that mindset. So in this presentation that I'm going to be giving next week, I'm going to be talking through a quick sort of framework that anybody can kind of begin to use to start thinking through a shift in their mind. And it's called the RAD Shift Framework. And the R stands for recognize. So this is where you kind of pause and you take notice of your thoughts, right? What is your emotional resistance, your mental resistance to what you're facing in terms of the conversation and the presentation is about change. But for you, like as a business owner, it could be towards maybe hiring on a new employee. It could be launching a new product, or just getting started, right? Recognize what are those mental and emotional resistance points that you're feeling right now. The A stands for align. So this is where you begin to reframe your thoughts with intention and begin to link those new thoughts to your focus moving forward, right? So you begin to realign the negative or the blocks and begin to realign it like, I can do this. Like, what's the worst thing that can happen, right? Let me just get started. Let me just take that first step. And that's the D, which is direct. So it's taking one clear action today that can reinforce that shift in your mindset. Because I think what a lot of people, it happens is they feel like anytime they need to make a shift, that shift feels gigantic because they're thinking the end of that shift, right? And they're thinking where they're at today. So like the beginning is here and the end is way over here. And they're like, oh my God, that gap is so large, I can't do it. But what you need to do, and this is what the direct step here is in the RAD shift, is you need to take the beginning over here and take your end goal and just move it way over here. So you just take one step today, right? And now your gap is so much smaller. And if you're listening to the audio, I'm using my hands and kind of reducing the gap between my two hands, right? And ultimately, it's just take one step today, a clear action that pushes you towards that outcome that you want. So, if you're thinking change, it's okay, what's one clear step that I can take today that's going to get me towards making that change with my team or in my business, etc. And then tomorrow, okay, follow up on that change. What worked? What didn't? Look for the opportunities. If it didn't work, what do we need to change? What do we need to make it a little bit better? That's how this kind of RAD shift begins to work. And what happens is it's not going to be perfect. I think when you're going through shifts like this, and I'm speaking from, kind of personal experience here, it's not going to be perfect overnight. It's going to take repetition. It's going to take consistency for you to continue to kind of put this into action in your mind in order for you to, kind of make it an everyday occurrence. For me, when, going through Carol's book, I had to read it twice in order to kind of really begin to implement that kind of change and growth mindset in for myself. And even now, I'm not perfect. There's probably some times where I still fall back into, the fixed mindset sometimes. But here's the thing. I can catch myself quicker now than I used to. I used to be very negative, be able to go down the rabbit hole and be there for a long time. But now, since reading, the book Mindset, I'm able to kind of catch those things maybe in like 30, 45 minutes, sometimes even quicker, and bounce back. And it's funny because I still get, kind of people commenting, to me regularly, like, how are you so positive, right? Things aren't perfect sometimes. But how do you stay so positive? And it's right there. It's the growth. I'm always trying to find that opportunity to grow and to make myself a little bit better just day after day. And that's it. Because what happens is when you turn around and you look at yourself, maybe 3, 6, 12 months down the road, and you make small shifts every day, you're not even going to recognize the person that you were 12 months ago because you just become that much better. So I hope you were able to take something from that. If you want the book, I highly suggest picking this up for yourself. Mindset by Dr. Carol Dweck. No paid advertising here, just kind of my personal sort of reference for y'all, because I think it's that important for people to kind of pay attention to their mindset. And I'm also, so after I give the presentation on Tuesday, I will actually be recording the entire presentation as well, and I'll have it out here probably on our YouTube channel, so you guys can all kind of listen through that in terms of the importance of your mindset, right? And how change truly does start from within, and how you as a leader, as a business owner, can begin to cultivate change by focusing on your mindset. Another kind of thing that I was thinking of kind of going over is, we've been talking automation, right? We've been talking systems, and how sometimes it can be overwhelming when you start thinking of like, how do I begin to implement some of this, like either automation or these sort of efficiencies within my business. And one thing that happened this week, I was working with a client, and it was the biggest, sort of, I guess, aha moment that he had. And as we're working, one of the first thing I noticed, and I asked him, because he's, they do billing, and he was spending 10 hours a week. So, 40 to 50 hours a month billing manually. All the while, like, having a system that they have to use to track everything. And my question was like, well, why are we not using this complete robust system that we already have in place for tracking to also do our billing? And sometimes the answer is just like, well, I'm not sure. And that's kind of where we were at here. And it was like, all right, well, let's we need to get you back that 10 hours a week, because as a business owner, we all know how important 10 hours a week can be. Or at least outsource that, or figure out some way to sort of, look at what's the best way to, put a system in place for billing. And that's where, a lot of people think like they worry about, implementing kind of these new sort of systems or these new sort of processes. And they wonder like, what's the ROI? Like, and so as an example of this, if you look at a task, so in this case, it was billing, and then you kind of time it out. Like, what is the time investment manually, which in this case, it was 10 hours a week or 40 to 50 hours a month. And then you offset that with, okay, well, look at your solutions. So in this case, it was either, let's use the system, which we found out this past week that by going through the system and implementing that appropriately and correctly, we could take billing from 10 hours a week down to like maybe 30 minutes a week. So now you're talking 40, 50 hours down to maybe 5 hours a month. So you kind of look at that ROI and you're like, okay, that's a no-brainer. And then the cost of that was, like under 250, under $300. So when you start thinking of the ROI, you're like, okay, how much is my time worth? Right. And give yourself a value of, if you get this time back in your business, how can you, how much would you be able to generate new business into the business by having that time back? So let's just say, for example, you estimate that to be $50 an hour. So by you being able to go out and have conversations and network and, talk to prospective clients, that could essentially bring you into the business about $50 an hour. Well, it easily becomes to see how the ROI on this implementation in this example is way worth it, right? $200 to get back something like $2,000 or $3,000 a month for 200. It's a 10 times ROI. It's a no-brainer. And even so, like in his case, his ROI is a lot more because his hourly rate, by being able to generate a new client, that customer lifetime value of a new patient or a new client could be drastic, could be like tens of thousands of dollars, right? By having that time back. So that's an ROI test that you can do, right? Look at a task that you're doing right now, that you're doing manually, figure out how much time is it costing you a month, then find one or two solutions, right? And look at, well, what would the time investment be with the solution? Obviously, there may be some higher time requirements during implementation, right? Because you got to make sure it's right. But then once it's running, what is that savings for you? Are you able to get back 90% of your time for, 10% of the cost? And this is where you can then, kind of make that decision for yourself and your business about what process, what system works for you. And especially if you're small business, right? So you're either a solopreneur or maybe you only have a couple employees, like work with your employees as well, because there are ways where you can take your one employee and make them, be able to be efficient and effective enough as 3 or 4, that aren't using some sort of systems or automation. And let your employees know that like you're there to help them be more efficient and more better with their time so that they can do more as well. And as the business grows, they're going to grow. So when you think of systems, you should always be looking to evaluate what's going on in your business, whether it's onboarding, whether it's client outreach, whether it's, financials, like, sometimes it's not a system. Sometimes it's outsourcing it too. So, for example, let's say the system in our example, instead of $200, it was going to cost like $6,000 a month based on charges. And this is just a crazy number, but I'm just throwing it out there. When you do your analysis, you find out, okay, in order to do it 30 minutes a week, it would cost us like $6,000 a month. But you could potentially have somebody come in, maybe part-time, that could do it for $20 an hour. And it would take them, 10 hours a week. So, that would cost you $800 a month, right? To have somebody come in part-time and still give him back the 10 hours a week. So even still, that would be worth that investment to hire somebody versus having the system done. So look at all solutions available to you, price them all out, look at the time investments that would be needed for all of them, and then make your decision. The first one isn't always the best, right? A lot of times you want to deep dive a little bit further, but once you do that, you're able to then make the right decision for you financially as well as efficiency as well. So, and if you have any questions or, you want to kind of talk through, right, what systems look like in your business, you're more than welcome on any one of our videos to drop your question down below. Dwar and I will be kind of taking a look at those questions and answering them. If you post them live while we're live, we'll try to answer them live during the session, or we'll make sure to include kind of like a Q&A session in future episodes as well with the answers to those questions and let you know what episode we're answering them in. Because we want to make sure that all of our viewers, all of our listeners are, getting all those questions answered. And there's no dumb question. I've said that to my teams when I led them. You are probably not the only person that is thinking a question if you have a question. So it is more beneficial for you to ask it, not only for yourself, but for others as well. So drop it down below. We'll make sure to answer those in future episodes or live on screen. Also, I'd love for you guys to share your feedback. Maybe there's some topics that you want us to talk through. Maybe there's a formatting change you want us to change. Letting you know as well, Dwar and I were talking last week after the show. We are going to start bringing in guests as well. So we're going to be talking through our networks, people that are that we feel are experts in different areas, or and different business owners that whether our clients are ours that have gone through struggles, and we're going to kind of help answer those kind of questions and things like that on air as well for you all. So if you're interested in possibly coming on, drop a comment down below. We'll outreach you and make sure that you're right fit, and that it makes sense for you as well to be on the show to talk through business questions, feedback, etc. Just to help you kind of move directly, kind of forward in your business journey. So if you're interested in possibly joining a future episode as well, let us know and we will outreach you. We're looking forward to that because I feel like that's going to be a beneficial part of the show for not only you who are on by being on the show, but also anybody who's watching that may have a question that you bring up. So, which brings me to so we all got to make money, right? So we all got to try to offset costs, etc. So this brings me to the advertisement portion, right? So ding, ding, ding. But as we talk about every episode, Dwar and I have revamped our Triumph Mastermind program with daily, Monday through Friday, open Q&A sessions. So for an hour every morning, we're going to make ourselves available to anybody in the group that wants to stop in, ask a question, ask for prioritization, anything that relates to your business. You're able to do that Monday through Friday. We're also going to have a weekly strategy session where we're going to talk through a different sort of, maybe it's a marketing strategy or maybe it's a financial strategy, but something that can help you in your business level up and, kind of continue on and reach that next level in your business journey. As well as we'll have a community for everybody so you all can network together. And we have our WhatsApp available for 24/7 questions. So you're able to kind of ask within the group questions that are, maybe pertinent at, even 10 o'clock at night. And somebody, will answer you. The ultimate goal with the mastermind is, when I mentioned earlier on, how can we shift my thinking right into helping those 1,000 business owners by the end of 2028. This was one of those opportunities that is there. So the mastermind is there. We have some founding member benefits live right now. So we'll share the link down below. And if you are interested, the founding member benefits, if you are one of the first 20 to get in, so the mastermind is going to be $199 a month after the founding member specials are over. So after we're launched and the founding member spots are claimed, it's going to be $199 a month. But the founding member specials, you're going to get in lifetime for $59 a month. for the first 20. So now you're getting like, ridiculous % off, but you're also going to get access to everything. You're not going to get anything different. And you're going to get some of this first early access, kind of to me and Dwarn themselves. So if you're interested in being one of the founding members, we will, down below after the show, I will make sure to include a link to the Mastermind website so you can take a look at that. And we're also offering a 30-day money-back guarantee. So if after 30 days, right, for the founding members, if you're like, man, I appreciate you letting me in, but I don't feel like I got the value out of it, we will more than happily refund your investment for your first month. But we know you will, so which is why we're so confident that we're going to offer that 30-day money-back guarantee. All right, done with no more advertising, okay? That was my kind of 2 or 3 minute pitch here for the Mastermind. So look forward to seeing you in that. One of the other topics, and I just actually created a video script on this morning, and it was about, and I've had a conversation with people, and I myself have been a victim, or I've fallen, into this trap myself. And that is falling victim to what we call scope creep, right? So people may be like, what's scope creep? And no, it has nothing to do with that weird guy in the van that's watching you. That's a different kind of creep. But this is when you are offering extra time over and beyond a package that a client has purchased with you. And a lot of people fall, especially solopreneurs, small business owners, fall victim to this so often because they feel like they have to do everything in order to keep their clients. And so what happens is somebody will reach out, one of their clients will reach out, and they're like, hey, I need you to do this, quick for me, or can you help me with this? I really would appreciate, you can helping me create some copy around this email campaign, for example, right? This is just, kind of an example. And us as small business owners are like, sure, I can easily help you out with that. I'll send it over to you, right? And what happens is that campaign, let's say they want a 10 email campaign, which you're thinking, hey, it's going to be easy. I'll kind of create it with AI. It'll take me, 20 minutes. Well, here 20 minutes turns into 3 hours because they're pushing it back to you and saying, I don't like this, I don't like that. And so now you've just spent 3 hours of your time this month that you did not get paid for doing something free for one of your clients. And this is what we call scope creep, because now you're starting to do things outside of the relationship that you're contracted with your client. So what you want to do is you want to get comfortable by asking them, kind of acknowledging the request, like, hey, John, totally understand you need help with some copy as sort of like a one-off. It's not typically included in your current package. So there's like 1 or 2 ways that we can handle this, kind of request for you, and we'd be more than happy to take care of it. One, we can do it as a one-off project, and if you need 10 emails, let's say it's going to cost you $200, right, or whatever your pricing may be, like whatever that is. Or we can actually, if you'd like, we can actually just add on $150 a month to your current package, and you'll get up to 2 hours or 3 hours for this type of additional work that's already included in your package, and we can work on it every month. Is that which offer or which option sounds like it would be more feasible for you, the project at $200 or the $150 a month? And so what this does, right, is allows you to anchor in your client's mind that you are giving them extra time, and that you also need to be compensated for that extra time, right? Because what happens is if you continually do that month over month, your clients will then begin to expect it as part of what they're paying you for. And then you get caught in kind of this conundrum that when maybe their renewal comes up and you kind of explain to them, hey, just letting you know, like we're upping it, by $250 because what we saw is that, we're doing all this extra time on your account that wasn't part of your agreement. They're going to, oh, wait. Well, I was paying $250 less for all that work. Why would I pay more for it now? And it allows you, right, to kind of alleviate that sort of stressful moment when pricing change comes up. So for yourself, begin to get comfortable with that kind of acknowledge the request, frame it, right? So framing it as, hey, we're happy to help. But here's the two kind of options we can do because it's not included in your package or your membership. And then offer 2 or possibly 3 alternatives for them to select from to then have that, kind of service done through you. This is the easiest way to kind of stop yourself from falling under that scope creep sort of trap. And what happens is when you fall victim to this is your time, it gets sucked away and your profits get sucked away. Because what you find is that you're not able to, those 3 hours could be impactful for you to go out and outreach new clients, to prepare some proposals, or do some other project work that you're actually going to get paid for. So stress your confidence that, hey, you are more than happy to help them, but you also want to make sure that you're staying within the agreed upon, work within their membership or their retainer or package, whatever it is that you want to call it. And what you could also do, a way to alleviate this would be in the initial agreement. And I think we talked about the importance of agreements in a prior episode, but this would be in the agreement, actually maybe even calling this out and saying, any work that, is requested outside of the scope mentioned in Appendix A, or however you want to word it in terms of your legalese terms, will be billed at a rate of X amount per hour. And so if you have that in the agreement, that could be one of the great ways to acknowledge it. When they say, hey, John, or, Jane, or whatever, your name is, I need you to, kind of help me with this, email campaign. Is that something you can help me with? You can respond with absolutely. Just wanted to, kind of bring your attention back to the agreement that since this is not included in the scope, we both agreed that this would be billed at $75 an hour. I'll track my time on this and I'll bill you appropriately. Okay. And then just get their, just get their buy-in. It's the easiest way to kind of alleviate it. And you can feel comfortable with it because it's in an agreement that they signed. So getting rid of scope creep in your business, you may, for yourself, give yourself some time. Like, think through this morning, like, look at the last 30, maybe 60 days and look at the work that you've done for your clients. And has there been anything above and beyond the membership or the package that they've been with? And with that, has it gone way beyond it that you realize, hey, I've been spending 5, 6, 7 hours above and beyond here that I wasn't getting compensated for? And if you don't have it in your agreement, start building that into your agreement. You may find that the results of that may be shocking to you because you're like, oh my gosh, I'm spending extra hours everywhere, and then you're probably wondering, well, why are you still stuck where you're at, right? So that's another one that I was just kind of thinking about this morning with scope creep as I was making that sort of kind of video this morning, because it is something that it creeps up on you because you don't really think about it. We're all trying to help our clients. We're all trying to do the best, but ultimately, for everybody's sake, if you're not getting paid for your time and you're doing all this extra work, yeah, in the short term, it feels like they're getting a benefit and they're happy. But in the long term, you may not be around. You may not be able to help people, right, reach the goals that you want. So, make sure you're billing appropriately for your time. And if you're not, find ways, as we just talked about, like acknowledge it, frame it, offer it. And if you have questions on that, again, we're more than happy to drop it down below and we can kind of talk through the situation and kind of go from there as well. But it's, I cannot believe, by the way, it's another thing kind of top of mind here that I just looked at the date, right? It is almost the end of June already, which is pretty crazy to think that like we're already through the first half of 2025. And I'm working on this for another one of my clients is a reforecasting of the 2025 kind of fiscal year and kind of planning out the rest of the year. And now is a perfect time for you and your business. If you haven't looked at your financial statements, if you haven't, begun to doing any sort of analysis on your business, like now is the time to do it. And it is still funny to me, or not, it is funny, but it's also like, alarming to me that there are still businesses out there that are doing, 7 figures of revenue that don't have a financial team. I just saw an example of this week where, a business is doing greater than $5 million in revenue and refuses to hire on any sort of financial team. It's like, what are you doing? You have no financial processes. You have no checks and balances. You have no accounting software. Like to me, it's like astronomical how businesses like this can actually get to that size. And not have, realizing the risks that not having somebody like that on the inside, or, even an outsourced sort of fractional person, has to their business. Not only that, but then IT and managed software. And so there's so many different risks. And I know it's a little bit off topic from reforecasting, but there's so many different risks that you as a business owner have to think about. And the number one, right, is financial is one. And I know some people, and so you can kind of reshift kind of this for yourself. But for me, right, my background's financial, so I'm always going to feel like financial is number one. IT is another one that's up there, like, especially if you are dealing with a lot of sensitive information, credit cards or health information, or, anything about a personal that you keep, whether it's on your computer or if you have, employees, it's on their computer. Like IT security should be like number one for you, and then financial. So, kind of, the hierarchy there. And then, obviously like planning in terms of insurance, a lot of business owners I've also talked with, like, don't have, health insurance, or don't have, general liability insurance. And it's crazy to me to think that there's businesses doing 7 figures a year that haven't thought about, kind of protecting their, sort of business. And then on the back end of that is the fourth area, in terms of risk and liability, is the setup of your business. And again, this isn't like legal advice, but making sure that you are working with some sort of a business attorney, et cetera, to have an understanding of how you're setting up your business. And I think the false idea that a lot of people fall under is that they feel like they have to be an S corp right away because they see all these like kind of benefits of the tax savings of being an S corp, and they're like, I'm going to start a business and I'm going to go right into being an S corp. Well, the problem with being an S corp is you have some sort of requirements on you, like paying yourself a salary. And if you have no money coming into the business, you can't pay yourself a reasonable salary, or even afford having a payroll company. So a lot of times, what my suggestion to a lot of people is either start with an LLC or start with a partnership. Obviously, get an opinion of a tax attorney. So again, this is not legal advice, tax attorney or business attorney, but typically start with like an LLC or start with a partnership until you have generated net profit enough, right? To make it worth, and we've talked about ROI above, to make it, make sense where you have these extra expenses of payroll, where that is way less than the tax savings. So, a client of mine that I've worked with since 2016, a couple years ago, we finally moved him to the S corp because he was making 6 figures a year. And when you're an LLC making 6 figures a year, and that's all on your schedule C in your business, well, you're getting taxed not only at the income tax level, but you're getting taxed at the Social Security and Medicare rate for both the employee and the employer, the self-employment rate. So that alone right there is like 16% rounded, right? So let's just say, for an example, you make $100,000 in your LLC. Well, you're going to pay 16%. So $16,000 of that net revenue, that's going to go to Social Security and Medicare. You're then going to probably pay, because you get 1/2 as a deduction. So you're going to have taxable income of $92,000 minus whatever, let's say you're single, right? So your standard deduction estimated, let's say it's $15,000. So you're going to get taxed on, let's say 80, 70, let's just call it 78,000. And let's say you're in the 15, I think that probably puts you, let's just say the 15% tax bracket. I'm just estimating, kind of taxes here. So that is now another $10,000. So of that $100,000, you're going to pay $26,000 in taxes. Okay. So now you're actually going to only net. So 100,000 minus 26, you're only going to net 74 grand of that 100,000 you made. You're going to pay $26,000 in the taxes. Now, if you change your tax status to an S corp, you're going to pay yourself through the business. Let's just say you pay yourself, a $30,000 salary, $30,000 to $40,000 salary. You're going to pay that 16% only on that 30 or 40,000, right? So now that 30 or 40,000, now that becomes, let's call that, what is 16% on 30 is like 4,500 to 5,000. Okay. And then your income tax, right? It's going to be the 100,000 minus the 30,000 salary, minus some taxes in there. So let's just call it $60,000. Okay. Plus the wage of 30. So you're going to be your taxable rate is 90,000 now, minus the 15,000. So your income tax rate is going to be about, 75 grand. Let's say you're at that 15% tax bracket again. So now that's going to be another 75, about 10 grand rounded. So now you're paying 10,000 plus 4,500. So it's 14,000 before you're paying 26. So by going to an S corp in this scenario, and again, these are all just rounded numbers. So, obviously talk to a tax attorney, talk to an accountant, or a tax person, which, we do taxes, but rounded in this scenario. So you're going to save about $12,000 in taxes by being taxed as an S corp instead of being taxed as an LLC. So that's where these things can become drastic. Now, in that scenario, what you may not, so what you need to figure out is how much is it going to cost you to pay yourself a salary through a payroll company? And if it's just you, I would suggest doing it monthly. So it brings your cost down, right? So now you're only paying yourself that salary once a month. Let's say you pay yourself $3,000 a month, $2,500 a month, right? But you're able to save all those taxes. But every scenario, every individual is different, whether or not they should be an S corp, whether or not they should be an LLC. But I think a lot of people feel like because they hear all these benefits, I have to be an S corp, I have to be an S corp. They make the mistake of being an S corp right away. And it actually is detrimental because you're not doing the actual things that you need to be doing to do as an S corp and like paying yourself. So it's actually not worth it. But talk to a tax attorney, talk to a business attorney to kind of figure out what's the best way to start. But like I said, my typical suggestion for a lot of people is start with an LLC, start with a partnership, and then when you start making enough profit, that's when you can make that shift to an S corp. And you can make that election up until March 15th of the year that you want to file for. So for example, for 25, you would have had to file it by March 15th, 2025. You can always do it late if you want. You just have to write like, what's the reason why you're filing late, and then it's at the IRS's sort of discretion if they want to accept that or grant it. But so that's why I typically say, file it by March 15th. And then it's going to take probably 6 months to get that letter back. So you need to start acting like an S corp like right away. So if you want to do it, let's say you're looking forward and you want to do it for 2026. You want to start acting like an S corp. So start paying yourself at the beginning of 2026. So that way, when you get that, you have, right, you're acting as an S corp, right? As long as once they grant you your S corp status, you're on payroll, like you're doing all that. So you don't have to try to do it right away when they get you your S corp status, which could be until September. Just some overall advice there on the financial side. But kind of going back, reforecast through 2025. What's happened in the first half that you didn't know was going to happen? And how is that going to impact the rest of the year, right? So plan that out, because what I think, and what a lot of people do is they set their goals for the beginning of the year, and then they don't change them. They set them. They feel like they're set in stone. You can change your goals, like reevaluate. Now is the perfect time. You're going into the second half of the year. Take a day, maybe a day and a half to sit down, with yourself, replan out the rest of the year. What happened in the first half of the year that's changed that you need to forecast out or, overcome in the second half of the year? And how are you going to do that? Now is the perfect time to do that. It is the beginning of the second half. You can begin to make an adjustment now, and now is the perfect time to do it. The second best time, right? The first best time was to do it was yesterday. The next best time to do it is today. So that was kind of, what I was thinking about today in terms of the topics and the discussions. And, kind of as I wrap up, if you made it this far or you watched the replay, again, we love you all. Like Dorn and I definitely love you all that are kind of engaging with the episodes, that are here to watch, that, we hope you're taking one or two things away every single week. We want this to be impactful for you all. We want this to be something that you come back and you look forward to every Friday, or you look forward to the replays, because you're able to listen and hear and make an impact in your business. So drop a comment down below, drop your questions down below. If there's anything that you have going on in your business right now that you want some support, drop it. We'll answer it. We'll bring it to a future, episode and answer it live for you guys to watch and listen to, and take, take momentum from it, right? Make momentum. One small step today starts momentum for the rest of your business journey. Doesn't have to be a giant leap, right? A lot of small steps equal that giant leap, and a lot of small steps are a lot easier to take than one giant leap. So take the small steps today. If you made it this far, we love you. We hope you come back for another episode. We look forward to seeing you in another episode. Arne will hopefully be back next week after being off of dad duty right now with his newborn. And if you are a business owner, right, and you're listening to this, if you're a business owner and you're interested in possibly coming on to a future episode, drop a message in the comments and let me know, and I'll reach out to you, and we'll determine, right, if it's a good fit, from both sides, and what we want to talk about, what you need to be open about. And if it is, we'll get you scheduled for a future episode. But I look forward to seeing you all next week. I hope everybody has a fantastic and amazing week ahead. And if you have anything, always feel free to reach out. And also down below is going to be the Mastermind link. Go check that out. All right. I'll see everybody in the next one. Hope you have a great week. We'll talk to you soon. You got me loose and set me free.